Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is David Brooks, the Cadillac Counselor, coming at you to talk to you about the Board of Education. Before I get into any of that, make sure that you subscribe, follow, always give comments. I don't want to hold you very long, but I want you to meet Mrs. Karen Yoho.
How are you this morning, Mr. Brooks?
I'm doing wonderful.
Good. Well, hello. Thank you so much for inviting me. As we were talking before about, you just want to help the voters become informed and educated. I was a 25-year teacher, and so I'm all about education and informed voters are wonderful because they vote, and that's what we want. You see a big drop off to Board of Education votes from the other higher offices, and it's often because people just don't know that we're just names and they don't want to take a chance. I appreciate that. So I appreciate this opportunity. So as I said, I was a teacher for 25 years. I've been married to my husband. Well, Joe, we'll have our 44th anniversary in about a week and a half coming up. And we have three grown children. They live in Maryland, but not in Frederick County. I have four grandchildren. Subbed for 12 years, stayed home with my kids, did the coaching, the PTA. I was a three-time PTA
You
president.
seem like you have an extreme amount of life going on. And I know that campaigning is just adding one more aspect to it. So the first question that I wanted to ask you was after looking at the results of the primary, you were very, very high in the vote count. How is that going to move you into the general election?
That's a great question. People keep asking. In the past, the way the candidates ended in the primary gave you a strong indication of how they might end up in the general. But this year, only 17% of the voters voted in the primary. So when people ask me how I feel, I say, I have no idea. We don't poll for school board. So I'm not leaving anything up to fate. I'm working as hard as I can, working with the other candidates on the Students First slate. Try to get out to knock doors, get to the voters, and just get the message out there. So do things like this when invited because it's so helpful. Once again, a different avenue to get to a different set of
We
voters.
know for a fact that the Republican Party really shows up during the general election. How does that affect the way that you are strategizing your campaign?
That's a great point. Excitement gets voters out. One of the things I've found in the past with Board of Education, it's supposed to be nonpartisan. There's been articles and plenty of talk. It's just not as nonpartisan as it was. 90% of the teachers belong to the union. That's doesn't matter what party you are politically, because the issues of education pull the teachers together. So if we can have our teachers be happy with making a decent living, workload issues where they feel like they can do well for their students, then the students are going to do better. Teachers have to have time to build those relationships, and then the students go from there.
The next question comes from someone that sent me a message in, and I will read that to you, and you can answer accordingly. It says, I would like her to explain her questions and actions that she chose after finding out about the DOJ investigation and the latter settlement.
There are times where you wish your life was a video recording and you could take it back and cut it and splice it. And, so sometimes in the middle of things from those Board of Education days, yeah, I've said some things that I was like, ooh, shouldn't have said that. And so, the idea that what we did wasn't illegal. I mean, technically that was correct. Seclusion and restraint were legal. Seclusion is now no longer legal. So if we were still doing it, I couldn't say that. But the extent to which we used it, the students that it was used on, that wasn't within the realm of legality. So yes, what I said was dumb. A couple of things I've said about COVID, I'm like, yeah, your words come back to haunt you. Be careful what you say. Open mouth, insert foot. And then you just have to kind of go on. So I What I've done since then is I've tried to meet with people. I've met with parents, I've met with students, and I think if you talk to them, I think they've forgiven me, and they're trying to help me understand better. We've been very reactive in education, and we need to be more proactive and stop things from happening before they happen. So why let a student become upset? Let's figure out what's upsetting them and then not do those things, or make it better for the students. So yes, I've said some dumb things. I'm working to make it better. I do want the best for the students. I think I've proven that through my 25 years of teaching.
My next question comes from someone in the community. They said, I would like to know why she voted to support the buyout for Terry Alban when the matter could have been referred to Maryland State Education for guidance of dismissal for cause.
These are wonderful questions. I truly appreciate, because you don't always get to explain. So I'm going to try to do this really quick. We can't talk specifically about Dr. Alban because that's what's called a personnel matter. But we have talked in sort of hypothetical. So let's look hypothetically. You have a superintendent that you want to fire for cause. There are 5 reasons, same as for teachers, and I always forget them, but it's like insubordination. There are a bunch of ins, so we would have had a reason because we hire, but we don't fire. So the state superintendent would have looked at what was sent in, would look at any school board sending in things and say, but you don't have a reason, or you have a reason. So then the superintendent in the interim, and that takes 9 to 18 months ish. Well, once the superintendent in the county sues and takes it to court, which of course they would because it's their livelihood, their retirement, their reputation. So they're going to take it to court. That takes 9 minimum to 18 months. That entire time, that person is still your superintendent. So now you're in this adversarial position. You're in court with them and they're still your superintendent. And add to that 9 to 18 months worth of legal fees. How expensive is that?
Is it truly possible to pay the teachers more and get the class size to be reduced at the same time? Is that even possible?
Meetings ago, maybe our last meeting, Brad Young pointed that out from the dais, how it's balancing, it's finding out. I wrote a letter to the editor probably 10 years ago, 8 years ago, something about class size. And because one year I had 20 students in 2nd grade, the next year I had 30. Do you know how much more time it took just to grade? And I use the example of a simple math test. Even 10 more minutes per student, that's 10 times 10, that's over an hour. Over an hour and a half extra time just for one test. So time is such a factor. So I've been trying to think, because the point is that as you said, and as Brad said, you get more teachers, you need more space. Now you're looking at capital expenditures. It becomes difficult. So I've been talking to some people, and what I'm hoping we can kind of propose and look at is maybe a 2-teacher model. As we go into the blueprint, we're going to have time where the teacher of record gets to pull students to do extra work, and somebody else is going to have to be teaching the whole class. So I think blueprint is going to put us into a 2-teacher model. And short of that, if we can just get more instructional aides that we're having trouble hiring anyway. So if we can just do something where, something to help the teachers with the workload, something to help the students be able to make better connections with the teachers, I think we'll make everybody happier, and then not have to look at extra space, at least as a temporary, or wouldn't be so temporary, a measure to get us where we need to be.
If you got in for another 4 years, what would be the main thing that you would want to address or facilitate?
Our votes as board members are our promises to the staff. And so we have to be careful what we do. Even Sibyllesville Elementary, when we closed it, didn't close it, turned it to a charter, that caused them to lose some staff that would have wanted to be there because they didn't know what we were doing and they had to make plans. So we have to be careful. So that's something I want to learn, to be more careful about my votes and make sure people know where I stand after we've had the discussion. Special education, there's some areas that I'd really like to see. We don't have strong programs that continue for our autistic students. And right now, some of our special programs are combining students with emotional disturbance. So they have, a lot of trouble behaving in situations and learning to do that with our autistic students. And it seems to me like we ought to maybe have some more specialized programs. I'd love to find ways to keep our students here rather than sending them to, private, let's see, what is it? Yes, special education private schools, where they don't have to travel so far, that we can serve them better. And we started with those. We keep cutting it out of the budget too, and I'm losing the name right now, but we have a program that we've tried to extend into our middle school and haven't been able to do that yet. And that's the kind of thing I'd like to
A
see.
lot of people that I've talked to have kind of questioned the way that you voted during the COVID time. What would you say to those people directly about what you are going to do that might be different than the way that you voted and handled COVID?
But you've got smart viewers, because these are great questions. When you look back to the first year of COVID, the first fall, like July of 2020, when we made the vote to have it virtual for the first semester, you look at the rate of transmission and the numbers, and we would have been happy to have those numbers as we went down the line. We got them back in school with higher numbers than we started with. So it was a lot of living and learning. And in a way, I can't say that I necessarily would have done anything different, because there was nothing to build it on. And it was a lot of, learning on the ground. What I did is I read a lot, I listened a lot. And people think, well, you didn't listen to us. Well, those might have been the people coming to the school board meetings, talking directly to us. They didn't have the advantage of reading the emails that we were getting from the other people that were deathly afraid or had, immune compromised situations in their family. So I tried to weigh it. I tried to do what was best, that I thought, in my opinion, and that's all it was, for our students, our staff. How could we keep people safe? I mean, teachers and students were dying in other places around the country, and we did not lose anyone in our school system that I know of to COVID. So I take comfort in that. What we did to students and what we did to staff, boy, so hard, so hard. I don't know anybody that did it well, but I think we've learned a lot through the whole experience. And, I was reading an article that COVID might come back a little bit this winter, but we've learned we have to keep the students in school no matter what.
The last thing that I want you to do is I want you to tell anybody who is watching this video why they should vote for you in the 2022 general election.
Well, thank you so much, David. I appreciate the opportunity. It's been great getting to know you through the campaigning and now, and I know you'll stay involved. I hope people vote for me because I do try to listen. People don't always think if you vote a certain way, you haven't listened, but I do try to listen. I try to put all the pieces together. My dad's a retired nuclear physicist, so I look at evidence. What I do, I call it sift and weigh. This seems to make sense. This doesn't. I take my 25 years of experience in the classroom, my 12 years before that as a substitute, raising 3 children, and now helping with grandchildren. What's going to be best for our students. And being a school board member does take time to learn. I've developed relationships with a lot of people in central office, out in the school buildings. Teachers tell me all the time, thank you for being a voice of common sense, because they know I've walked in their shoes. I was just at a school board conference Thursday and Friday of last week, and the relationships I've built there, I have people I can tap into around the state to find out what best practices are and what they're doing about something. That all takes time. I have that time and experience, under my belt, and I'd like to, and I've learned so much. And now we have a new superintendent that I think I can work extremely well with, and my fellow colleagues, on the board that I've come to know over the last 2 years that will be continuing. So I would just like the opportunity to really put all that experience and knowledge to even better use, and I hope the voters will give me a chance.